Okay, guys, let's begin, shall we? So, if we can go direct with consciousness, if it's possible for all of us to go direct with consciousness, how do we transcend that need to get it right? The need to be perfect, the feeling that we're not enough, there's not enough money, that what we're doing is not enough, that you're not successful enough. How do we actually transcend all of that? I don't know about you, but I definitely have had perfectionist syndrome down to the minutia of how my body looked, right up to the macrocosm of what my life looked like. I was told pretty early on, maybe like you, by my school, by my parents, by the world, by television. There were so many reflections of what your life was supposed to look like that if it looked like that, then you'll be happy. Isn't that true? Do you notice that? It's like, do you ever ask yourself why everything had to look just so? The body, the muscles, the eating habits. If it just looked that way, then somehow, or maybe even better, you'll get a closer seat to God in heaven, So it's a funny thing. It is a funny thing. So why do we get caught up in that? My name is Jennifer Hough. If you've never met me before, hi. If you've met me before, hi. And just so happy that you're here. I've been working in, I guess people call me a fluidity and fulfillment expert. Fulfillment on who you are, why you're here, or if it's a business, who that business is as an entity and why it's here. And fluidity, because fluidity is when you can go direct with consciousness and bypass the need to fit in with anybody or anything. You can just go direct. So I've been teaching for about 20 years. We've helped, I counted, it's over between 120,000, 150,000 people all over the world transcend struggle by going direct with their own innate wisdom, meaning not needing a conduit, not needing a psychic, not needing that literally you become the walking meditation. You become embodied with the greater part of you. When I say the greater part of you, I really mean the majority of you. The majority of you, meaning 99.139% of you, is not even physical. The most of you is actually between the atoms, between the electrons, the protons, and the neutrons. And literally most of you is non-physical. And that's not a woo-woo concept. That's actually a reality. For me, none of this is woo-woo. For me, I'm a very science-based human being. And once I understood that most of us wasn't even three-dimensional, wasn't even physical, I wanted to understand how the subatomic part of us worked. Because if you can understand that, then you can actually master anything. Because if you can master the subatomic aspects of who you really are, if you can actually flow in that world, all of a sudden you affect everything in the physical. If you can affect everything in the physical by dealing with the metaphysical, then actually the hard work in the physical becomes a lot easier. Do you understand what I'm saying? So again, for me, none of this is woo-woo. Remember, I'm an accountant and an economist who then evolved to be a biologist. So most of my work is in the sciences. The fact that I started having wakened dreams about humanity is a whole other thing unto itself. But what I looked for, and I becoming an incredibly huge skeptic of my own self, was all the science that backed up what we're sharing today. So for me, what we're talking about is a very scientific, a scientifically based conversation, and not something that is a tree hugging crunchy granola conversation. It's my reality. It's how I see. So And for many of you, you just haven't put language to how you see yet. And I love putting language to it because it makes it real and tangible and practical and usable. So we're going to take 22 minutes or so, give or take a minute or two. And what we're going to talk about is all the pressure we put on ourselves to get it right, or to not get it wrong, or to be a good person, or to get the journey right, or to be all that in a bag of chips for others. In return, we'll somehow get love and acceptance in this amazing life, and we'll be extraordinarily happy. And yeah, well, here's the thing, you guys. I got that t-shirt, all right? I got straight A's in school. I was the goodiest two-shoeist of the goody two-shoes. And for those of you that are rebellious, don't worry. That happened later after I put myself in the jail of perfectionism. So I understand that way of being too, because I'll tell you, it's a pretty big slingshot when you were born to be a freedom seeker and you try to fit yourself into a box. You know, the slingshot goes back pretty far. So I just was born to figure this life out. I just knew it. So it's like, I got to check off all the boxes. I got to do that exercise where you do what your soulmate has to look like. They have to look this tall and that good looking and this, and, you know, be this successful, and the house has to look like that. Well, subconsciously and sometimes consciously, I made all the check boxes, and basically I checked all the check boxes. This is 20 years ago. And after I checked all the check boxes, including having the husband, and I'm not kidding you when I said I work at a big multinational, had all the benefits, had this huge career in front of me. I had a husband that was a president of a company. I, did exercise classes and joined the gym and had the cutest little puppy dog in the whole wide world, backed onto a stream in a conservation area where I could go for walks. I mean, really, I checked all the boxes that I had, and I figured, well, that'll make me happy. You ever done that? Where you looked at all the boxes, you checked a whole bunch of them, and for some reason you looked around you, and I'm telling you, it's not even that my husband was a bad person. He wasn't a bad person. That's what made it so ironic, or so paradoxical, I should say. He was a good person, and he loved me, and I presume that even though he doesn't like me very much, I think he still loves me, and I love him very, very much, especially for being such a catalyst in my life. I didn't know at the time that he would be. But after checking all the boxes in my perfectionistic way and trying to get it right, what happened was it was never enough. And for those of you who are perfectionist in any way, you try to get it right, you try to make sure all the T's are crossed before you do something and the I's are dotted before you do anything. You don't want to look bad, you don't want to poke people, you don't want to make them feel bad, you want to make sure you do the best job, you want to make sure your house is the cleanest, or whatever it is to you. If the goal of all of that is to be happy, and you've been doing a lot of that, and it doesn't matter how much you do, you're not fundamentally fulfilled and happy, then you probably are finding out the same thing that I found out, which is that none of that stuff has you feel fundamentally happy. I mean, we'll get into it in a second, but it's not happy. It's fulfilled. You're going to have days that are hard. You're going to have people that die in your life. It's not about getting it right or having it under control. And today what we're going to talk about is why we get caught up in getting it right in the first place, or trying to get it perfect, or having it under control. Be interesting to know, right? It actually doesn't set you free to know why you do it, though. That's just a really convenient explanation for how come you do that. But knowing how come you do it doesn't undo it, which is why I'm not a big fan of endless self-analysis for the rest of your life. It gets boring after a while, because at some point you've got to activate how to live differently so that you're free. Know what I mean? So, so the second thing we're going to talk about is how to set up your life to be able to live differently. That's what I'm talking about. So you can have freedom, a sense of freedom. You know, At the end of this year, we haven't announced it yet, but we're doing something called Freedom Fest. Don't email us about it, but Freedom Fest is going to be a big convention for people like you that can come. Haven't done anything. There's no announcement. Don't go looking for it. I'm just telling you about it. So at the end of October, the last weekend of October, we might see you there. And the third thing is, let's say there's about 12 things sequentially that one needs to sometimes, concurrently, but mostly sequentially, one needs to start to integrate into one's life to actually fundamentally be free of needing to be under control, get it right, etc. And I'd love to hear from you. What are the ways that you try to get it right? What are the ways that you try to have it all handled or under control, or make sure no one else is upset, or make sure you are presentable to the world? I'll tell you how far I went the other way. So why do people do this? Well, first, and why is there so much change right now? Why are some of the kids that are coming forth so not concerned with how they look or getting it right? Because if any of you know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there's been a change. We used to say that the bottom rung of Maslow has a hierarchy of needs, which is basically a construct to be able to explain human behavior. They said the first thing a human being needs, which guides their actions, the very fundamental, is you need food and you need a place to stay. Those are the first couple of things you need. You need subsistence and a place to stay. I can tell you right now, the driving force for our children is not that. The driving force for our children, they would give up food and water and a place to stay. In fact, many of them run away from home for the same reason, for their freedom. They want the freedom to be able to feel their instincts, feel their intuition, live their lives. They're wired to be able to follow the call of their internal guidance system. And they will kick and scream and buck and they'll have a starvation fest in order to declare their freedom. So freedom fundamentally is becoming even more important. Why? Because the evolution of humanity is such that if we can't follow our instincts to be able to make this world a better place, then what is the use of the house or the great food? So there's becoming a change because of what's going on in the world. There is really evolving a change. So how do we become a black belt fluidity, have the greatest life without needing to get all the circumstances right first? Well, first of all, why do we do it? Because we get told by society, the television, the internet, our parents, schools, that life needs to look a certain way. I'd love for you to just type in the comments, how has life had to look? What were you taught about how life needs to look in order for you to have a great life? In order for you to be happy and fulfilled? What have you been told? Just write it out for yourself. Really get present to it. So why we do this is because we've been trained and it gets pummeled into us. And even though as a child we're fulfilled and happy sitting in a field, I was at 3 years old, sitting in a field with a bunch of daisies making daisy chains for 3 hours on end. Tell you, I wasn't even thinking about food and water. I was thinking about daisy chains. So I wasn't thinking about whether my dress was clean. I wasn't thinking about whether, the world was blowing up around me. I was following my inspiration and my creativity, right? So what are the things that you got told, right? Even if you're not American, you have this idea of the American dream. So the next reason why we try to get it right is because we're wired to be happy and fulfilled. And if someone gives us an instruction and the instruction sounds like, okay, that sounds good, I don't have any alternatives, We literally follow the instruction manual like I did, and I checked all the boxes, and I can tell you unequivocally it does not matter if you have all those boxes checked. So that's the second reason why we try to get it right, or we try to be perfect. But I'm going to give you one final one. Oftentimes when we were little and we got it wrong according to someone bigger than us, they yelled or they screamed or they spanked or they did something that scared us. And we interpret it as a child that if I don't get this right, I'm not going to get love. Right? If I don't get it right, then someone's going to judge me. So we make up this perception that if I don't, that basically I have to figure out what the rules are and then I got to follow them. And if I do that, then everything's going to go well. Well, you've been following them. How's it going? It's the old operating system. So this is the third day that we're talking about the old operating system. An operating system is basically like going from, if you have an apple, it would be like going from, leopard to maverick, or from, or it's like going from, a Microsoft product to an Apple product, or vice versa. It's a completely different operating system. And even if you're on the same computer upgrading the operating system before is completely different from the operating system now. So the point is this: we are plugged into an operating system that human beings invented, but physics already has an operating system, and if you operate from it, it's basically designed such that when you get out of the way of consciousness and of the particles of physics, everything starts to come to you, first of all. Secondly, if you learn how to dance with the language of consciousness, you actually start to learn how it works and how it is always operating for you. And as you learn the language, things just become incredibly more fluid. Because at your basis, those very, very tiny particles are what govern existence, not this three-dimensional reality. That's why we get into struggle and hardship, and sometimes we just pull our hair out. We make it so hard. Now, we're beginning to change operating systems here in the work that we do that's online, but the actual work to embody that shift, because someone asked earlier in the day, how do I not go in and out of it? How do I consistently remain in the fluidity? So the difference in operating systems, okay, is from an operating system that's man-made, that says if your body just looks like this, and you have this much energy, and you eat this way, and you look this way as best you can, and you get this education, and you if you be a good person, etc., then you will end up being happy and fulfilled. This is how physics works. If you're happy and you appreciate what you're fulfilled by, you'll get more of that. If you love your life and you notice the beauty around you, you get more of that. If you stop trying to fulfill on the wants and needs of others and stop trying to look like society wants you to look, and you just be yourself, you'll have more freedom to be yourself. It's a completely different operating system. Now, me talking about it is not going to change your life. Of course, you probably already know what I just said. If you've ever listened to Abraham Hicks, or you've ever listened to... But you see, and all of those wisdoms are profoundly wonderful. But there is a difference between talking about it intellectually and having conversations about how to be differently, and actually embodying the new operating system such that you don't need to talk about it anymore. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that's why I wanted to have this conversation today. Because embodiment is actually based on a set of experiences, not based on a conversation or intellectual knowledge. So this, with you, is fabulous, but it's still an intellectual conversation. Do you understand? to take you on the journey of embodiment, it actually takes an experience to rewire your physicality, your biology, your left and right brains, expand your corpus callosum, etc., etc., etc. So when the person today asked, how do I live that way more often? So often we're looking for the intellectual knowledge, and I could tell you how to, but unless you actually experience it, here, I'll tell you what it's like. It's like saying, tell me how to ride a bike. If I told you how to ride a bike and you'd never ridden a bike, which happens to every 5-year-old, right? They go out, you tell them how to ride a bike, they'll jump on the bike and they will fall over immediately, right? So me telling you does not get you there. It's kind of floundery, just like the person said earlier. I think it might have been Jasmine, going in and out, up and down. Sometimes you got it, sometimes you don't. But embodiment has you be that way all the time. Now, the issue is, what happens when you fully embody yourself? Well, first of all, the need for perfectionism in the new operating system is ridiculous. Why? And which is why likely my marriage broke up. And God bless my husband. I'm telling you, according to the book, he checked every box. And I know part of him was checking the boxes for me, because he was trying to get it right and be perfect and for us to have a perfect life. But we got to decide, do we want to get it right or do we want to be fulfilled? Which one? Do you want to get it right or do you want to be fulfilled? Because the operating system for being fulfilled and feeling connected and having a great life is entirely different than the operating system for having the life that looks really wonderful to the outside world. I gave up everything I had in order to rent a little house, which was beautiful in the woods, and then travel the world and meet so many people, tens of thousands of people all over the world. Now that fed my soul, still does. And assisting people to see what I saw, I cannot tell you. I wonder what would feed your soul that much. I wonder if you donned or embodied that new operating system, what's waiting for you? Because here's what happens when you get less interested in getting it perfect or getting it right. Having the perfect kids, having your kids behave all the time, looking like the perfect mother. You understand what I'm saying, right? See, being fulfilled and at least if you're going to use perfectionism, use the word perfectionism. You use the word perfectionism on the right terminology. Use the term perfection. If you want to perfect something, perfect fulfillment. Perfect going direct with consciousness. Perfect the embodiment of all that you are. Because I promise you, at that point, you really will laugh at all the things that you used to try to make meticulous. I'll give you an extreme example of the shift to embodiment. Does that make sense? Okay, everybody breathe for a second. So my mom used to say to me, and I love my mom, we call her Saint Mom. She used to say to me, and by the way, she's a church lady, so you'll understand this. She used to say to me that my grandmother, but she was really saying it to me, used to say to her, Jennifer, my gosh, look at your house. What would Jesus say if he walked into your house right now? And I used to go, I'm not sure how to answer that. But in the last 10 years, I answer it a different way. I say to her, what Jesus would say is, holy smokes, man. I used to have to sleep on a dirt floor. This is like a palace. That's what Jesus would say. So I shared that with her, and of course she laughs and she doesn't ask me that anymore. So it's not even perfect or imperfect, guys. That we have the polarity between perfect and imperfect, it doesn't even matter. There is no perfect or imperfect. There's the dance with all of creation. So the last point I want to make about this, and it's the most important one, so if you are smart enough to stick around for this, is this for me is the juicy piece. Now, when I finish up here, I also want to tell you about something that if you really would love to participate in our programs, there's a way to get, well, you'll have to find out. I'm not even going to tell you. So, but stick around because it's important. Okay, so juicy piece. Ready? Okay, if you run around trying to get a perfect, or if you even try to don the perspective that it's imperfect and it's perfect that it's imperfect, that we even dance in that paradigm activates the polarity of it. The truth is, human beings were not designed to get it right. So listen, this is part of the new operating system. It's the most important thing that I am going to say, aside from what I'll say in about 2 minutes. Okay? It's the most important thing. Just listen. Breathe it through. Here it is. The fundamental operating system that got granted us is based on the idea that we are an extension of creator consciousness. We are an extension of physics, that all it wants to do is continue to create it upon itself. It wants to continue existing, but it wants to figure out new ways to fulfill on its existence, and then it wants to understand itself more. You with me? So at our fundamentals, our smallest particles are having this blast, understanding themselves better, dancing with each other on the microcosm level as we dance with each other on the macrocosm level, and we learn and we create. So at the basis fundamental level, we are here to create. Now, here's the paradox, here's the juicy bit. If we're here to create on what was here before, in the design of our existence is that nothing would be perfect or right. That nothing would be exactly, ultimately as it ought to be. Because in order to create upon creation, you actually have to have things that haven't reached their... How can you create upon something that there's no more creation to do about? Just look at the computer industry, or look at our cell phones, or look at the way we clean up the environment, or look at the way there are constant and never-ending evolutions. So when you're trying to make sure life stands still so that you can be comfortable, it's not in our design to get it right. The only thing in our design is to create upon what it's already been. It doesn't matter if your house is clean. It really doesn't. Unless you're getting funding for your creation, and the people that you're bringing over to your house to get the funding are very, very meticulous people, and it actually serves to create a house that way such that they might give you a grant and you don't trigger them because your house is messy. Do you understand? Like, it's all a big, amazing game. Isn't that fun? So, hopefully I've made a compelling argument against perfectionism. Now, here, and I'm glad, Pamela, that makes sense. Yeah. So, you guys, let's take it from there. So the thing I wanted to share is this. Recently I did an interview, and if you want to be a smarty pants, I will put it in the comments up above. I will also put it in the comment field down below. Go and listen to that interview. It explains the operating system pretty well. And there's a little gift offering in there that I'm going to say is very worth listening to the interview. Okay? Listen all the way through. The interviewer is someone that I spent time in a room with 21 world leaders and budding world leaders, and she was one of them. And she said, "I can't wait to have you on my radio show." So I went on, and I just love Lori. She's fabulous. So I hope she gets to listen to this, and I hope you get to listen to that interview. I also want to let you know that the process of embodiment around going direct with consciousness, every get out of your own way has a different subject. This is the first time we're doing the subject using the technology that allows you to embody the ability to go direct with consciousness and all the skill sets to become a master, so you don't just fall off the bike. So that you become, it's putting on the training wheels and then taking off the training wheels so that you can just ride the bike. And it becomes your default. You know how people say you never forget how to ride a bike? It's sort of like once you embody it, you can't unembody it. It becomes part of you. So this is one of those crucial experiences together. It's not an intellectual thing. So if you haven't yet registered for Get Out of Your Own Way, you can do it online, or you can do it live and in person. We still have a few spots left in person. So you can do that. And you can find out more about it at www.thewideawakening.com/going direct. Okay, go and check it out. And one thing that I will say is this. Okay, this applies. So this is the little bonus thing. Let me give you a hint. You guys will recognize this. I recognize it. I've done it. When you're prone to being a perfectionist, you also don't like it when you do the wrong thing. Do you know what I mean? Like you are averse to doing the wrong thing. Doing the wrong thing makes your eye twitch. So what happens is if you're thinking of going to, I don't know, the Azores or Hawaii, or you're thinking of going out of town to visit your in-laws or your aunt, or whose place you're going to for Thanksgiving, or whatever it is, depending where you are in the world, where you're going to take the kids. And you know how you get into this mental thing about should I, shouldn't I, which one should I do? One of the things I want to share is you'll know what's a no. See, if something is a no, it's very obvious. It's a hard no. If you're not supposed to do something, you will not have a mental battle in your head. The only reason perfectionists have mental battles in their head is because they know what they should be doing, and then their personality that's trying to protect them from getting it wrong has an argument with their knowing. Isn't that cool? I'm going to say it again. Really get this. See if you can really breathe this in. When you're a perfectionist, you actually know what you should be doing, or what's in the highest to do. Not should. I don't like the word should. But you actually know what makes you feel like, oh my God, that would be so amazing. Like that, it expands your cells. It feels connected. It feels like it would connect you more. But then what happens is your personality, that's the perfectionist, that isn't your conscious, guided, oh my gosh self, the part of you that isn't that, that's protecting you from getting it wrong, which of course we already discussed, you can't get it wrong. There isn't even a concept called getting it wrong in the universe. The universe doesn't care. If you go one direction and it's not in your highest, the universe will redirect you. You can't get it wrong. You will always be redirected to what your most creative, amazing, fulfilling path, even if you go askew a little bit. And the lesson will be so powerful that you'll never go askew again. So you cannot get it wrong. So I know in this world, when you're making choices and you've been a perfectionist, what happens is you know what your most expansive path is, but then your personality habitually starts to have an argument with what you know would be in your highest. I can't do that. It's too much money. I can't do that. It's this way or that way. I can't do that. What will my parents think? I can't do that. It makes me look like a bad mother because I'm leaving my kids while I go to some dolphin retreat. You know what I mean? Some of the most powerful changes that our students have made in their lives are when they stop doing what they always do. What you always do gets you the same life that you always had. It's just logical, you guys. Making steps to tell consciousness that you're up for a different life. Consciousness is looking at your actions. It's not looking at what you think. It's not looking at what you intend. If your actions don't match what you intend, you won't ever get what you're intending. The point is, it takes a little courage to change. But remember, everything is about creating upon creation in our existence. I even was thinking lately, oh my God, I got to get out there more. I'm going to go and learn Spanish. I got to expand myself. It's time to take Aikido and become a black belt in Aikido. Do you understand? So, hopefully that was helpful. And in the consideration of doing Get Out of Your Own Way, I want to tell you, you probably already know, and then there might be an argument. My recommendation is you can't do something called Get Out of Your Own Way and not have to get out of your way to do it. It's in the design. So if it really is time, and I say this with all compassion, really, it was the hardest thing in the world for me to leave my husband. Even now I get a little bit emotional about it. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Watching his heart break, my heart broke. This is nothing like that. But I can tell you, in doing that, my life cracked open, and the things that I found and I saw, and the operating system that I am so excited to pay forward to you. So often it's not about leaving the person you're with. It's actually about being vulnerable and loving them more. But the change requires that you take extraordinary action, or you don't get extraordinary results. You cannot get it wrong. There's no wrong in the universe. It's a human construct. You understand? There's no wrong in the cosmic operating system. There's just creating upon creation. You go this way, you go that way. You'll be redirected. But when things keep presenting for you, say yes. Yes them. Don't know them. That's the argument. And the universe starts realizing that you're a yes to what's presenting, because it operates for you. And as you yes to what's presenting, you start figuring out creative ways to do things. You start asking awesome questions. Okay? So just a little kick in the butt today. A little cosmic kick in the butt.